Welcome back to the 5th installment of Paranormal 4chan Stories. This is going to be the last 4chan video that I do for the foreseeable future, just because I want to focus on other projects. The stories in this video cover a wide variety of topics, from conspiracy theories to creepy LA stories to quantum immortality. I hope you all are comfy, and please enjoy this, for now, final installment in the 4chan series. Scrubbed. Let's make a thread about things you've seen online once or twice, and you could never find again no matter how hard you looked. This is different from lost media. Don't talk about TV shows or anything of that sort. Talk about things that you saw other people discussing online, or anomalies that you found yourself, including websites, YouTube, or video sites and threads. The interview of the brunette woman immediately following the Vegas shooting. She had long brown hair, probably mid-20s, and was being interviewed against a brown brick wall. She gave testimony to a small, possibly local news source that there were multiple shooters in tactical apparel. She testified that she was in the second story of a cafe near the plaza when the shooting started. Her and her boyfriend looked over the railing of the second story, saw men in dark tactical gear with military rifles entering the cafe and shooting patrons. Her and her boyfriend hid on the second floor. I saw this a week after the shooting took place, and referenced it for years afterwards. But a few years ago I went to find the video to show someone, and it was gone. Nowhere to be found. Did some digging, found a 4chan link about the video. Someone was asking for it, but no one had it. Someone posted, bros? Insert link here. The link was to the brunette woman's obituary. Apparently she committed suicide 2 weeks after the shooting. Detailed post to keep her memory alive. She saw something she wasn't supposed to live through. This was way back in 2002, while we were just beginning to learn about link rot, and how not everything is always going to be on the net forever. I found a PDF of a preliminary report on the Apollo 11 photographs. It was dated 1969, and it was 6 pages of early observations and commentary on the photographs Armstrong and Aldrin took on the moon. All the pics were small, and PDF photos back then were total shit, so they were largely useless themselves. But in the commentary, the guy who wrote the report was talking about these shallow trenches that were supposedly visible in most, if not all, of the photos. Most of them ran in a certain direction, and nobody had any idea what made them. Now, I had never noticed any trenches of any kind in the photos, so I had no idea what he was referring to. I thought maybe I just never noticed them. I went back and looked at the photos again. I never saw anything that could be construed as a trench in any photo. I never saved a copy of that report, thinking it would always be there. Eventually, it went 404, and now I have no proof whatsoever that these trenches exist on the moon. They were scrubbed out of the photos. But before they were scrubbed, this guy saw the original photos and made a note on them for that report. I don't know what caused them, but if they were important enough to airbrush or whatever out of the pics, you can be sure they were something special. Used to have this weird book called A Concise and Comprehensive History of Car Parks that I bought on a whim at a thrift store because the title was delightfully mundane. One day when I was bored enough to actually commence reading it, I realized that the supposed history of these structures goes way back into ancient times and has occult references to recursion and even our base territorial instincts. I lost it during a move and I can't find it anywhere online. I would pay thousands to have this book again. It went into detail about how medical waste or extirpated tumors would be made into a special kind of ash to be used in the production of cement car stops. It was fascinating and legitimately felt like a large conspiracy was unfolding itself right before me. I know this description would seem very vague, but I remember watching a video on very early YouTube that still fascinates me to this day. I'd say I watched this around 2011 or 2013 or so. It was formatted in the style of a top 10 kind of video. The title could have been Top 10 Strangest Videos on the Internet or something generic like that. The scene of the video takes place in an environment like Pick Related. There were these 2 guys talking about something, not sure about what, but towards a camera, facing the tree line of woods with their backs turned to it. Out of nowhere, something runs past them, or maybe behind them, extremely fast. The first time it happens, they pay no attention to it, as if nothing happened. Then, whatever it was, started doing it again and again, running back and forth in front of the camera. The video itself was pretty low quality, maybe 360 or 480p, but you could tell this thing made the two men frantic. It was bipedal but moving at inhuman speed. I think that their car was behind the camera, and so I think they ended up throwing themselves into the car and driving away from the place. I could definitely see how something like that video could have been possibly faked with special effects, and me being a child at the time, but the fact that it's been impossible for me to even find this video again makes me think that this video could have been possibly real footage and has been scrubbed off the internet, as OP would put it. The old internet was full of crazy stuff. Be me as a kid in around 2012. Browse 4chan. See a video of a presumably Russian in some sort of small town or prison barracks. Think he was wearing some kind of overalls. Has an orange cybernetic hand that's almost the size of a football. I'm completely convinced that this tech does not and cannot exist. No sign of it being from any kind of movie. Hand gets stuck on a doorknob. Not sure if they used a tool to get it off, but it was strange. Never seen anything like it since. Can't find it again. In the same thread, multiple videos of children moving objects via telekinesis, influencing electronics, and one where a kid drowned a dog, I think. All videos clearly homemade and from the 90s and early 2000s. Another incident, black and white documentary film on YouTube back in the day. Had some cryptic name about strange occurrences. Not sure if it's based on a real story or completely fake. Multiple stories. One story I remember is about a filmmaker that travels into the desert, presumably in Mexico. Follows this group of indigenous people. One of them becomes his guide or something. After some time they leave. They jump or hop straight up and just disappear into the ground as if they had been swallowed. They then reappear hundreds of feet away in the same manner, just popping out from solid ground as through a portal. They do it until they are gone from sight. He finds their village abandoned, as if no one had lived there for decades or centuries. Story concludes, reminds me a bit of the Twilight Zone, but I didn't know about that back then. I saw a video of the 1960s moonwalks, where they showed the astronauts exploring ancient buildings carved onto the moon rock on YouTube like 10 years ago. Never found that video again. Hey X, any LA bros have some scary stories around the city? Creepy spots or any encounters? I got one for you guys. Be me in 2019. Be in East Hollywood near the Sunset Strip. Be with cousin dropping off friend to friend's house. Shooting the shit. A little after midnight, I notice a figure moving near friend's house driveway. Pay no attention since it might have been a shadow or something. Look at the LED light nearest to us and try to rationalize what figure it was. LED lights on the streetlight can barely reach his driveway. Okay, WTF. Check other nearest light and it's on the next street over, behind friend's house. Me still trying to rationalize figure. Cousin notices it moving. Friend's back is turned so he didn't see it. I see it now. It's a white floral nightgown swaying side to side like it was on a clothesline. Nightgown had this faint fluorescent green glow which reminded me of the glow-in-the-dark stars and moon that were put in my room as a kid. Seems like it wanted our attention and now it had it. Tell friend to turn around. Nightgown strides into a side alley near house. Friend and I chase after it and start to search an alley and surrounding area. Tells us that one of his neighbors had died recently. Her cats were making a meal out of her. Wasn't discovered until a week after she passed. Not a shitbricks moment, but definitely more on the WTF side of the paranormal. This one's a little schizo, but... GF has a pretty crazy encounter. B-girlfriend. Psychic, witch, and Eastern Star. Does a lot of general, medium, ritual stuff for people in Hollywood, mostly writers and studio employees, and every once in a while a minor celebrity or personality. Gets invited to dinner at one of her clients' houses. 2 movie writers. LA middle class, so by every other metric, rich if they weren't in LA. Walks into the house and furniture is non-existent except for dining table. Immediate bad vibes and tries to figure out an excuse to leave. Couple is getting handsy with her. Seems like they wanna do stuff. She gets mad and then tells them she's leaving. Their faces morph, like a cloaking device glitching or dropping. Describes their faces as combination between alien and reptile. They chase her out of the house. She still runs into them every now and then because of the circles she works in, but they keep their distance from her, and she does as well. I've only been there once, but my mom grew up there in the 80s. Her and her friend are crashing at this other guy's place. He wears black and listens to heavy music compared to whatever she liked. They were in his room and he was on his bed, facing away towards the wall, asleep. Guy has a strange idol that he's obsessed with. It was some sculpture. I forget the details. Friend gently places a finger on the idol. Without moving, the guy laying down says, "Don't touch it," in a stern voice. Different time, same guy. Again with another friend and him. Her and the friend are going somewhere else, so they're parting ways. Guy is walking away from them, and he's about a block away on the other side of the street. The wind is blowing, and my mom's friend says something in a low voice to the effect of, "God, that guy is such a freak." He immediately turns around and glares at them. They nope out. She's told me a shit ton of stories, but I don't know any other ones that are paranormal. LA seems like a crazy place. I talked to my mom on the phone. It's hard to get her to talk about any of the stories from that time because she had a really traumatic childhood, and I don't want to pressure her in any way, but she told me more about that guy. He had super long brown hair and it would hang straight on either side of his eyes. They were very piercing and intense. He wore it like someone who would hang out with Charles Manson, she said. My mom's sister was a year younger and they're still super close to this day. She hung around the guy too. I never heard these stories and there's less detail because my mom's relaying them, but the idol she mentioned wasn't a sculpture, but it was like a taxidermied black ram, only 12 inches long or so. My aunt was at the guy's place alone one time, walked into dude's room when no one was in it and the ram tipped over on its own. Another time she was hanging out with him in his room and the door just randomly slammed shut but no one else was in the house. Different time, my mom, aunt, and the strange guy dropped acid together. It hit my mom too hard, so she excused herself and was lying down in bed in her room. She had some memory surface in her mind. Wouldn't tell me what it was. She hears the guy's voice say, "I know," in her mind. She turns in her bed and the guy is in the room, sitting Indian style, staring at her. Never heard him open the door or anything. It was like he just appeared. The last story really gets to me more than any of the others. My mom and aunt stopped hanging out with him after that. Sounds like he legit might have been into Satanism with the black ram and spooky happenings. Hey X, got any spooky stories from Central America? I got one from my dad that he usually tells. Dad. Around late 20s in Guatemala. Going to pick up Grandpa from field after work since he was a farmer. Starts to head out at around 7 p.m. Heads out to road leading to field. Path goes up mountain and is really dark. Very few homes at that time, so rarely any light. Dad makes his way up the road. Midway through his journey, he feels uneasy. Hears rustling in the bushes. Black mass, from what he recalls, comes out from said bushes. Comes up next to Dad and walks next to him. All the while, this mass is just mumbling words. At this point, Dad is shitting concrete walls. Speeds up walking. Then goes back to the bush where it emerged from. Dad immediately hauls ass up the road. Dad hopes to see Grandpa is coming down the mountain. Hopes Grandpa hadn't left beforehand. Grandpa had his radio that would blast music while he worked. Dad hears music and is instantly relieved that Grandpa is making his way down the road. Tells him about the encounter. Grandpa tells Dad he's lucky the thing didn't win him. Both go down and pass the area where the mass came from. Get home and sleep. Next day, Grandpa shows Dad a newspaper article. That face when a known friend of my dad was murdered in the area where he encountered the apparent spirit a couple of days before. I got one from my mom that she told me about her relative. Mom's cousin. Eating late at night because came home from work late. Starts hearing mumbling outside the house. Looks at door window. Sees slow movement and dim lights. Opens window to see what's going on. Sees a large funeral procession happening. Looks at procession and it hits her. Why would there be a procession at night? Keeps looking on and soon a lady goes to her door and hands her a candle through the window. She takes it. Puts it on her drawer. Eventually she goes to bed. Next morning she checks her drawer and it turns out the candle was actually a femur. She immediately tells her mother. Tells her to throw it away. Soon after, her health starts to decline. She withers away in bed. She dies. Mom was severely spooked enough not to go to the windows at night in fear of the procession coming out again. Hey X, long-time lurker here. Lately I've been experiencing some strange occurrences that I can't help but feel are somehow important. It started last week when I noticed my neighbor's dog always barks 3 times whenever I leave for work. At first, I thought nothing of it, but then I realized it only does this for me, no one else. Then there's this thing with the numbers. I keep seeing 1123 everywhere, on license plates, receipts, and even in random YouTube video timestamps. It's probably just my brain picking up on patterns, right? But yesterday, I found an old photo of my great-grandfather in the attic. Guess what was written on the back? Yep, 1123. I'm not saying that it means anything, but it's starting to freak me out a little. Has anyone else experienced something similar? I can't talk to my friends about this stuff. They'd think I'm nuts. Thanks for listening. Tell me about your stories of when you were a kid and someone spoke to you when you were in your room alone. Or you felt a presence when you were in bed falling asleep. Then one day it was gone and you never thought of it again. I wasn't a kid, I was like 31, but I woke up in my bed in my room, and standing right beside my bed was something that looked like a Cenobite from Hellraiser. Just a dude with like some weird metal jigsaw looking contraption coming out of his neck with chains connected to his face and stuff. Except, then I woke up again, also in my bed, in my room, in the exact same spot. Except I couldn't see the Cenobite this time. So it was like I had a dream that I woke up from a dream, but it was just a dream, and then I really woke up. Or did I? Ooh, then who was phone? Oh boy, can't believe I have an excuse to bring this whole story out. Be me, maybe 4 or 5 or so. Have my own room. Bed sideways against the wall, furthest from the door. Door shut. Have trouble sleeping. Lay in bed and watch as the silhouette of a tall man with a wide-brimmed hat, trench coat, carrying a briefcase, comes through the door. Steps over to the wall, where the shadow of a table suddenly is. Sits down in the shadow of a chair that also suddenly is. Plays cards with someone on the other side of the door. The shadow figures hard stop at the threshold of the door. Can't see anyone he's playing with, but occasionally see evidence of another player. Fall asleep watching him play cards. This goes on for a long time. Mom is gonna sell car. I'm following her to garage. Stop in laundry room. Shadow man appears on the wall beside me. Tips hat. I have to go. I won't be seeing you anymore, kid. Shadow man walks out of the house, exiting via back door. Mom sells car. New owner of car wrecks and dies. Weird stuff. Years ago when I was a teenager, I was studying in my room relatively late at night, with both a room light and a lamplight on that caused some static shadows to be cast against the wall. At some point, I noticed that there was a moving shadow on my wall that seemed to look like a hunched, bald male figure rocking side to side. It didn't have any features, it was just a silhouette, because it was a shadow, but it kept moving. I looked around my room for anything that could be casting the shadow. I stood up and moved around to see if maybe I was causing it. I got closer to see if it was maybe a trick of perspective. I put my hand in front of it to disrupt the shadow with my own, but nothing worked. I couldn't find the cause of the shadow. I got so weirded out that I think I turned the light off and left the room for a bit, and then when I came back, the shadow was gone. It's been years since this happened, so I might be misremembering the event in that maybe I found the source of the movement and I've forgotten, but I remember being extremely confused for at least a few minutes as to what was casting it. When I was around 8, my family lived in a pretty rural area. We had a few neighbors, and the highway was nearby, so it wasn't like we were completely isolated, but we were in the woods. In the back of my house, there was a trail that led up to a sort of open area that was owned by the town. We called it the Pit and would play there often. Sometimes we'd find remnants of homeless encampments and stuff like that. Anyway, one night around dusk, we hear the loudest, blood-curdling, "Help! Help!" repeated over and over for a few minutes, coming from the pit. Needless to say, we were all scared shitless, and my mom didn't feel like playing hero, so we called the cops. They went up there and found nothing. It was so jarring, and them finding nothing terrified me. About a week later, my brother and I worked up the courage to go play there again. We came across a pole with some concrete at the end of it, like it had been broken off something or pulled out of the ground. The concrete was covered in dried blood. We noped out of there so fast and told our mom. I don't think she contacted the police again, though. Since moving back to the mid-Atlantic, I haven't been able to get any sleep. 85% of my dreams consist of being lost or trying to recover something in the hilly forests. I'm exhausted and busting my ass to find my way back before nighttime. Sometimes I'll be stuck or lost in some giant, old, dark Victorian house that varies. Usually the house is in a woods near an abandoned beachfront. When I'm around the beaches and cities, I find myself trespassing into abandoned movie theaters, schools, and arcades around the beach areas at night, feeling really uneasy and stressed for some reason. Anyone else living in mid-Atlantic Northeast US been having these dreams, or is it just me? It stopped for a bit when I lived in California temporarily, but after moving back, they're happening a lot more frequently. Quantum immortality is an interesting concept, and to an extent, I believe it may be true. For those unfamiliar with the concept, you won't ever die until you are meant to die. My story. Driving to get car work done. Girlfriend right behind me. Have to pull a U-turn in order to get into the mechanic lot. Begin turning when some asshole ran the red light it was safe for me to turn on and started heading towards me fast. Probably going 65 in a 45. As I blink, completing the turn but bracing for impact, I swear it was like the car glitched and spawned an additional 20 feet back and barely missed me. What the fuck? Girlfriend saw the whole thing. Says she swore the car hit me dead on, but guess it didn't? Strange that I saw a separate thing than she did, but happy the result was the same. Look into quantum immortality. Huh, interesting theory. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm gonna live dangerously. I don't know when I'm scheduled to die or how. Another thing to keep in mind is being stupid doesn't mean you get away free and clear. You could end up a maimed cripple testing fate. I also wouldn't play hero. If your time to die is in war on a battlefield, you could find yourself shot dead. That wasn't the only time a highly strange car incident happened. Driving in the downtown of a capital city in the US with small roads. At a stop sign, a semi-truck thinks it's a good idea to try to take a massive turn to beat the light on a two-lane street. To this day, I have no clue what happened. The front of the semi cleared, but it left the front of my car under the trailer, and the angle the wheels were coming had the back wheels driving over the front of my car and square over the driver's side. Fuck you, dude. What a stupid sentence. It was like the back wheels clipped through the front of my car. Again, almost died, but didn't. Glad I didn't, but really weird. They're called brakes, Anon. My theory is that your consciousness exists across the multiverse, even though you're only aware of a single present at a time. Some of your futures die, but you still keep experiencing the future where you lived. I don't think this makes everyone immortal, but I think there are some very unlikely scenarios where you keep on living, so eventually your consciousness is narrowed down to the few futures where you survived. I also think that there are a few net-like futures that collect people who die. Some of them are like afterlives where no one dies, or where paranormal entities are collecting and recording the dead. So when you finally die in all the normal universes, you'll end up experiencing the one where a race of space aliens that record the dead have simulated your soul. There could be countless such afterlives with different reasons for existing, including hells created by AI or other entities. The multiverse is the most likely explanation, and I believe there is evidence of it as well. Alright guys, that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said, I'm not going to be doing any 4chan or X related videos for quite a while because I just want to focus on some other things. I kind of want to shift my content to be a little bit more fun while still being creepy rather than just, constantly reading these schizo X posts. But if you feel like you still need your 4chan fill, I highly recommend checking out the channel T6x6. He reads fantastic 4chan stories. They come out every week. Definitely check him out if you're still interested in hearing stories from X. But anyway, thank you guys, and I'll see you very soon.